I was once a devoted husband who believed I had found true happiness with my wife Jessica. We lived in Seattle, enjoying what I thought was a perfect marriage for 5 years. Then I discovered those text messages that changed everything. My in-laws, Richard and Martha Wilson, always seemed to favor Jessica over our relationship. Little did I know they were actually working against me. That Thanksgiving dinner became the moment when all secrets were exposed. Where are you watching this from? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to hear more life-changing stories like mine, hit that subscribe button and join our community of truth seekers. Now let me take you through how my perfect life came crashing down. I'm Clement, a 35-year-old software engineer living in Seattle. I met Jessica 6 years ago at my college friend's wedding. She was 33, beautiful, with this captivating laugh that made everyone around her smile. We connected instantly over our shared love of hiking and classic movies. After dating for 8 months, I proposed, and within a year, we were married, and had purchased a modest but comfortable house in a quiet Seattle suburb. My parents live in Portland, just a few hours away. They're simple, honest people who welcomed Jessica into our family with open arms. We would visit them monthly, spending weekends filled with home-cooked meals and card games. Those visits always left me feeling recharged and loved. In stark contrast, visiting Jessica's parents was an exercise in patience. Richard and Martha Wilson lived in a sprawling mansion overlooking Lake Washington. Richard made his fortune in commercial real estate development, and Martha came from old money. From the first time I met them, I sensed their disapproval. Despite my stable career and genuine love for their daughter, they made it clear they had envisioned someone more suitable for Jessica, perhaps one of the sons of their country club friends. Still, we maintained the tradition of Sunday dinners at their mansion every week. Those dinners were filled with subtle jabs about my career choice, questions about when we might move to a better neighborhood, and reminiscing about Jessica's ex-boyfriends who had gone on to become surgeons or executives. I endured it all because I loved Jessica, and she seemed oblivious to her parents' condescension. The first signs that something wasn't right began about a year ago. Jessica, who worked as a marketing director for a luxury hotel chain, started mentioning a new colleague named Adam. Initially, Adam was just a name that came up in work stories, but soon he became a recurring character in Jessica's daily narratives. I thought nothing of it at first, happy that she had made a work friend who seemed to appreciate her talents. Then the late nights began. Once or twice a week turned into 3 or 4 times. Jessica would text that she was working late on a big project with her team, or that she and some colleagues were having dinner to brainstorm for an upcoming presentation. I trusted her completely, so I never questioned these explanations. Our intimacy began to wane. Jessica became distant, often claiming exhaustion from work when I initiated affection. When we did make love, it felt mechanical, lacking the passion we once shared. She started taking her phone into the bathroom when she showered, something she had never done before. The revelation came unexpectedly one Thursday evening. Jessica was working late again, and I decided to order takeout for dinner. My phone was charging upstairs, so I grabbed hers from the coffee table to use the food delivery app we shared. That's when a message notification appeared from Adam. Curiosity got the better of me, and I tapped on it. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Same hotel. My stomach dropped. I scrolled up through their conversation history, finding months of intimate messages, plans for meetups, and explicit content that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling like someone had punched me in the chest. When Jessica returned home that night, I confronted her immediately. She denied everything at first, claiming Adam was just a flirty colleague and that I was overreacting. She accused me of invading her privacy and tried to make me feel guilty for checking her messages. But the evidence was too clear to dismiss. My suspicions fully awakened. I began investigating further. I checked our phone records and found hundreds of calls and texts between them, often during times Jessica had told me she was in meetings or asleep. I reviewed our credit card statements and discovered charges at upscale hotels and restaurants on days she claimed to be working late. Each new piece of evidence was like another knife in my heart. For days I could barely eat or sleep. I would lie awake next to Jessica, listening to her peaceful breathing and wondering how she could betray me so completely and still sleep soundly. I contemplated confronting her again with all the evidence, but something told me there was more to uncover. I made a decision I never thought I would make in my marriage. I hired a private investigator to follow Jessica and document her activities. It was expensive, but I needed to know the full truth before deciding what to do next. 2 weeks later, the private investigator delivered a comprehensive report that confirmed my worst fears. He provided photos of Jessica and Adam entering various hotels, dining at romantic restaurants, and even spending time at Adam's downtown apartment. The timestamps and locations corresponded perfectly with Jessica's late nights at work. There were even photos of them kissing in public, seemingly unconcerned about who might see them. Armed with irrefutable evidence, I confronted Jessica again. This time, faced with photos and documentation, her facade crumbled. Through tears, she admitted to the affair, confessing it had been going on for nearly a year. She claimed she still loved me but had developed feelings for Adam that she couldn't ignore. Then came the revelation that shattered what little composure I had left. In her emotional state, Jessica mentioned that her parents knew about the affair and had been supportive of her finding happiness. The casual way she said it suggested she didn't even realize how devastating this additional betrayal would be to me. I called my best friend Tyler that night from our guest bedroom where I had relocated my things. Tyler and I had been friends since college, and he had been my best man at our wedding. He listened patiently as I poured out the whole story, expressing shock at both Jessica's betrayal and her parents' involvement. "You need space to think, man," Tyler advised. "Come stay with me for a few days. Clear your head before you make any decisions." I took his advice and moved into a hotel instead, needing complete solitude to process everything. Jessica called and texted constantly, alternating between tearful apologies and accusations that I was being unreasonable by not coming home to work things out. During one of these calls, Jessica accidentally revealed more than she intended. She mentioned that her father thought I was being dramatic about the whole situation. The comment struck me as odd, given that I hadn't spoken to Richard since discovering the affair. How would he know my reaction? This slip led me to check Jessica's text messages with her parents, which I had access to through our shared cloud account. What I found was more disturbing than I could have imagined. There were hundreds of messages between Jessica and her parents, discussing the affair in detail. The screenshots revealed Richard and Martha not only knew about the affair but actively encouraged it. One message from Richard read, "Adam has the connections and ambition you deserve in a partner. Clement was never going to provide the life you were raised to expect." Martha had sent messages coaching Jessica on what to say if I became suspicious. "Tell him you're working on the Anderson account. He knows nothing about marketing and won't ask questions." I discovered that Richard had paid for several of the hotel stays and had suggested alibis for Jessica to use. "Tell Clement your flight was delayed. I'll back up your story if he calls here looking for you," one message read. Most hurtful were the messages revealing their true feelings about me. Richard had written, "We only tolerated him this long because we thought you might come to your senses eventually. Adam is much more our kind of person." The conspiracy against me was extensive. Jessica's parents had been urging her to maintain our marriage for appearances while continuing her relationship with Adam until she was ready to make the transition. They even discussed how to ensure I would get minimal assets in a divorce, with Richard claiming he had friends in the legal system who could help. My anger, which had been directed primarily at Jessica, now expanded to include her entire family. The depth of their deception and the calculated way they had undermined our marriage was breathtaking. They had smiled to my face for years while plotting against me behind my back. Thanksgiving was approaching, with the traditional dinner at the Wilsons' mansion already on our calendar. In a moment of clarity, I decided not to cancel. Instead, I pretended to be working toward forgiveness, telling Jessica I needed time but was willing to try to save our marriage. Her relief was palpable, and she immediately informed her parents that we would be attending Thanksgiving as planned. For the next 2 weeks, I maintained the charade of reconciliation. I moved back into our house but kept emotional distance, claiming I needed time to rebuild trust. Jessica interpreted my calm demeanor as progress, not realizing I was meticulously planning my response to their collective betrayal. I met with a divorce lawyer to understand my options, and was relieved to learn that Washington's status as a no-fault state meant Jessica's infidelity wouldn't affect the division of assets. I secured all our financial documents and began separating our accounts. I gathered all the evidence of the affair and the conspiracy into a comprehensive file, creating backups on encrypted drives and a secret email account only I could access. As Thanksgiving approached, I finalized my plan. This would be a holiday none of the Wilsons would ever forget. I woke up on Thanksgiving morning with an unusual sense of calm. After weeks of emotional turmoil, I finally had clarity and purpose. Jessica bustled around the house, selecting the perfect outfit and baking her contribution to the dinner, completely unaware of what I had planned. "I'm glad we're working through this," she said as we drove to her parents' mansion. "Mom and Dad are so happy we'll be there together." I nodded, offering a non-committal smile. I had dressed carefully in a tailored navy suit that Jessica had always said brought out my eyes. In my pocket was a small device that would change everything. The Wilson mansion was decorated impeccably for Thanksgiving, with tasteful autumn arrangements and the scent of pumpkin spice in the air. Richard greeted us at the door with a firm handshake and a clap on my shoulder that felt like the ultimate hypocrisy. "Good to see you, son," he said with practiced warmth. "Glad you two could work things out." Martha embraced me with her usual stiff hug. "We're all family here," she said, her eyes not quite meeting mine. The dining room was a showcase of Martha's entertaining skills. The long mahogany table was set with fine china crystal glasses and sterling silver flatware. A magnificent turkey occupied the center, surrounded by all the traditional sides. A fire crackled in the fireplace, and classical music played softly in the background. We weren't the only guests. Jessica's brother William and his wife Sarah had arrived from Chicago. Martha's sister, Aunt Patricia, a stern 70-year-old widow, sat near the fireplace. 3 of Richard's business associates and their spouses completed the gathering, all dressed impeccably and making polite conversation. Cocktails and appetizers were served in the living room. I sipped my whiskey, slowly engaging in superficial conversation, while observing the dynamics around me. Jessica stayed close, touching my arm, occasionally playing the part of the devoted wife. Richard held court, discussing his latest business venture, while Martha flitted between guests, ensuring everyone had drinks and complimenting the wives on their outfits or jewelry. When we moved to the dining room, Richard directed everyone to their assigned seats. I noted with bitter amusement that I was seated far from any of the business associates between Aunt Patricia and Sarah. Jessica sat across from me between 2 of Richard's colleagues. As the first course was served, Richard stood for the traditional Thanksgiving toast. He raised his crystal glass, his signet ring, catching the light from the chandelier. "I want to thank everyone for joining our family on this special day," he began. "Thanksgiving is about gratitude and family. 2 things. The Wilsons value above all else." His gaze swept around the table, lingering briefly on me. "We are thankful for loyalty, for traditions, and for the bonds that keep us united through all of life's challenges." Martha followed with her own toast, speaking emotionally about their perfect family and how proud she was of her children and their choices in life. Jessica shifted uncomfortably in her seat, glancing nervously at me. One by one, others shared what they were grateful for. William mentioned his recent promotion. Sarah announced they were expecting their first child, to gasps of delight from Martha. The business associates spoke of prosperity and friendship. Then it was my turn. I stood slowly, straightening my tie as I surveyed the faces around the table. Jessica's smile looked strained. Richard nodded encouragingly, clearly expecting some conciliatory words about family forgiveness. "I would like to express my gratitude as well." I began, my voice steady. "But first, I believe in transparency and truth, especially among family. So, I've prepared a special presentation for all of you today." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small projector, placing it on the table, aimed at the bare wall behind Richard. Before anyone could react, I pressed a button on my phone, and an image appeared on the wall. It was a screenshot of text messages between Jessica and Adam, explicit in nature, with a clear timestamp from 2 months ago. The gasps around the table were audible. Jessica has been having an affair with her colleague Adam for nearly a year. I announced, my voice now projecting to reach everyone. But that's not the interesting part. Many marriages face infidelity. I swiped to the next image, a hotel receipt with Jessica's signature, dated during a weekend she had told me she was at a marketing conference in Portland. What makes this situation unique, I continued, is the extensive cover-up orchestrated by Richard and Martha. The next slide showed the text messages between Jessica and her parents discussing the affair. Richard's face had turned crimson, while Martha's had gone completely white. "Richard," I said, turning to my father-in-law, "you paid for the Fairmont Olympic Hotel on September 23rd, didn't you?" While telling me Jessica was working late, before he could respond, I swiped to another image showing his credit card statement with the hotel charge circled in red. "And Martha," I turned to my mother-in-law, "you suggested Jessica tell me she was having dinner with you on October 12th when she was actually with Adam at his apartment." The next slide showed Martha's text with that exact suggestion. The business associates and their wives were looking at each other uncomfortably. Aunt Patricia had her hand over her mouth in shock. William and Sarah were staring at their parents with disbelief. "Let me read you something," I said, swiping to another text message. This is from Richard to Jessica, dated 3 months ago. "We never thought Clement was good enough for you. Adam has the background and connections that suit our family. Maintain appearances with Clement until after the Henderson merger. Then we can help you transition to a more appropriate relationship." I looked directly at Richard's business associates. "I wonder if the Henderson family, who I believe is merging their property development company with yours, knows that family appearances are more important to you than integrity." Richard stood abruptly, his face contorted with rage. "That's enough. This is outrageous." "No, Richard," I replied calmly. "What's outrageous is conspiring with your daughter to maintain a sham marriage while she cheats with your approved replacement. What's outrageous is smiling to my face every Sunday while undermining my marriage." Jessica was sobbing openly now. "Clement, please stop. We can talk about this privately. We're well past privacy, Jessica. Your parents helped you violate the privacy of our marriage for a year. Now everyone can see the truth." I showed several more slides, each revealing more of the conspiracy. Messages where Richard and Martha discussed how to ensure I would receive minimal assets in a divorce. Martha coaching Jessica on lies to tell me. Richard's message about having friends in the legal system who could help them. By now, 2 of the business associates and their wives had stood up making awkward excuses about family emergencies. Richard tried to convince them to stay, but the damage was done. William looked at his parents with disgust. "You did all this. You actively helped Jessica cheat on her husband." Sarah, visibly upset, added, "How could you talk about family values and loyalty while doing something so deceitful?" Aunt Patricia, who had remained silent until now, turned to her sister. "Martha, I am ashamed to call you my sister today. This is not how our parents raised us." Martha attempted to salvage the situation. "Patricia, you don't understand. Clement wasn't right for Jessica. We were just looking out for her happiness. By encouraging her to cheat instead of divorcing, honestly, that's not looking out for her, that's corrupting her." Patricia responded sharply. Richard, seeing his social and business world crumbling, turned his anger toward me. He stepped forward aggressively, pointing his finger in my face. "You planned this humiliation deliberately. You could have handled this privately." I stood my ground, meeting his gaze steadily. "Just like you handled my marriage privately, by secretly undermining it for years." "No, Richard. You chose deception, so I chose truth. Public, undeniable truth." I calmly swiped to my final slide, an image of divorce papers with my signature already on them. "I filed for divorce last week. Jessica will be receiving the papers tomorrow." I looked at Jessica, who was being comforted by her brother's wife. "I loved you sincerely, Jessica. I would have done anything for you. Instead, you and your parents decided I wasn't good enough without even giving me a chance to prove my worth." I turned off the projector and placed it back in my pocket. "Thank you for the hospitality over the years, insincere as it was. I won't be attending any more Sunday dinners." With that, I walked out of the dining room through the grand foyer and out the front door. Behind me, I could hear raised voices, accusations, and crying. But for the first time since discovering the affair, I felt a weight lifted from my shoulders. The truth was out, and I was free. The aftermath of my Thanksgiving revelation was immediate. As I drove away from the Wilson mansion, my phone buzzed with a text from William. I had no idea what they were doing. "I'm so sorry, Clement. This is unforgivable." I moved into my own apartment that weekend, a modern one-bedroom in Capitol Hill. Jessica tried to contact me multiple times, alternating between tearful apologies and angry accusations that I had deliberately humiliated her. I blocked her number and communicated only through our lawyers. The divorce proceedings moved forward quickly. Jessica didn't contest anything, perhaps out of guilt or simply wanting to end the public embarrassment. We sold our house, divided our assets equally, and within 6 months, our marriage was legally over. Through mutual friends, I heard that the Thanksgiving incident had significant repercussions for the Wilsons. 2 of Richard's business associates had withdrawn from deals, uncomfortable with his demonstrated lack of ethics. Their country club friends whispered about the scandal, and several couples stopped accepting their invitations. The perfect family image they had cultivated for decades was tarnished. During this difficult period, my own parents proved to be my strongest support system. They never said "I told you so," though they had expressed concerns about Jessica's character early in our relationship. Instead, they helped me listened when I needed to talk, and gave me space when I needed solitude. I reconnected with friends who had drifted away during my marriage, many of whom told me Jessica had subtly discouraged our friendships. Tyler remained my rock, inviting me for basketball games, and insisting I join his family for dinner once a week to ensure I was eating properly. About 6 months after the divorce, I ran into William and Sarah at a local coffee shop. The encounter was initially awkward, but they asked if they could join me. William shared that Jessica had moved to Chicago to take a new job and start fresh. He also mentioned that Richard and Martha's marriage had become strained, with Martha blaming Richard for the aggressive approach that led to the public exposure. "They're not the same," William said. "Dad lost that Henderson merger, and it humbled him. Mom hardly entertains anymore. I think they're finally reflecting on their actions. I felt no satisfaction in their struggles." Revenge had never been my goal, only truth and self-respect. On my therapist's recommendation, I had started seeing a counselor specializing in betrayal trauma, Dr. Keller helped me process not just Jessica's infidelity, but the deeper betrayal by people who had pretended to be family. Through our sessions, I came to understand that their behavior reflected their own insecurities and values, not my worth as a person. A year after the divorce was finalized, I felt like myself again, perhaps a more cautious version, but also a stronger one. I had been promoted at work, started volunteering at a local coding program for underprivileged teens, and even adopted a rescue dog named Max, who became my loyal companion. Life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. At a friend's art exhibition, I met Alicia, a talented graphic designer with an infectious laugh and kind eyes. We started talking about the artwork, and ended up closing down the gallery deep in conversation about everything from classic films to our favorite hiking trails in the Cascades. When I told her about my past, I was direct and honest. I explained what happened without bitterness or anger, just stating the facts. Alicia appreciated my openness and shared her own experiences with relationships that had taught her important lessons. We agreed to take things slowly, both valuing honesty and clear communication above all. Now, 2 years after that devastating Thanksgiving, I can look back with perspective. I won't pretend the experience didn't change me. It taught me that appearances can be deceiving, that people's actions reveal their true character more than their words, and that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Was public exposure at Thanksgiving the most mature response? Perhaps not. But in that moment, faced with a coordinated deception by people who should have valued integrity, it felt like the only way to reclaim my dignity. I don't regret showing everyone exactly who the Wilsons were beneath their perfect facade. The most important lesson I learned was about surrounding myself with people who value honesty and accept me for who I am, not who they wish I would be. My worth isn't determined by others' assessments, but by my own integrity and how I treat people. Richard and Martha deemed me not good enough based on superficial standards, but their own behavior proved they had no moral high ground to judge anyone. I found peace in knowing I stayed true to myself throughout this ordeal. I didn't lower myself to their level of deception or manipulation. I simply revealed the truth they tried so hard to hide. Have you ever experienced betrayal from those who should have supported you? How did you handle it and what did you learn? Share your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more experiences that might help you navigate your own challenges. And if you know someone who might benefit from this story of standing up for yourself, share it with them. Thank you for listening to my journey from betrayal to rebuilding. Remember, sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most authentic beginnings.